Bow ties are sometimes cool.
Welcome to Bow Ties, Sometimes Cool. Myself, Ashley, and Ed. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Ash. How's things this evening?
Very good, thank you. Very good. It's sunny. It's Friday. What more could you want? What do you drink there?
Pints of Theakston's Old Peculiar to keep me going during this. To keep my vocal cords wetted during this chat about the season 13 classic Terror of the Zygons.
Why have you called me back? I hope you've got a very good reason.
Take my word for it, my dear. There are ancient mysteries here. Evil spirits haunt Talakamura.
Exactly what could have caused injuries like that, Doctor?
Something very big and very heavy.
And very savage.
There's something rather unusual in the loch.
Loch Ness?
Yes, sir.
Don't tell me you found the monster.
As it happens, Your Grace, that's just what we do need.
Machine guns may not be enough, Brigadier.
Nothing could stand against us.
Is it possible?
To change the destiny of us.
Now, when we decided to do this one, I thought, there's this gentleman I know called Paul, and he's possibly the world's greatest authority on Tom Baker. He's also possibly the best Tom Baker impersonator I've ever heard. So I asked him, would he come along? And first of all, he said, no. So I had to send the heavies round to his house to persuade him. So under no duress at all, Paul, welcome to Bow Ties Are Sometimes Cool.
Thank you very much. And Brigadier, may I say, have you dragged me 270 million miles just to sort out a little trouble at sea?
Well, that's the thing the Doctor would say, and he did say it in Terror of the Zygons.
So thank you, and it's a pleasure to join you. I've been listening to your broadcasts, and they've been very good.
Thank you. And Paul's asked a few questions in the past of our guests as well. He was the chap that, if long-time listeners may remember, who asked Chris Naylor, did he wear a duffel coat in the recordings to get into character as Harry?
Yeah.
Well, I think actually Terror of the Zygons does feature the best duffel coat action for Harry. So,
Paul, Terror of the Zygons, was it originally meant to be part of season 12 and held over?
Yes, it was. They decided to move it forward, or backward, I suppose, to the beginning of the autumn 1975, because I think it was the first season actually that started in the autumn. I think that's right. So Philip Hinchcliffe decided to curtail it. So it meant that season 12 carried on into season 13 continuously. So they didn't have a break.
No, and it's sort of got the feeling. It's sort of got the feeling as well. Where it begins where Revenge of the Cybermen left off as well. So you've got at the end of Revenge of the Cybermen, the Brigadier telegraphing the Doctor, and the beginning of Terror of the Zygons, the Doctor bemoaning that, as you said, the Brigadier's dragged him 270 million miles just to sort out some trouble at sea.
Well, and of course we get that lovely continuity in the Disney Time 1975 Bank Holiday special, when the Doctor's in the cinema and he gets the note up from a chair and he says, "It's the Brigadier. He's in trouble again. And I'll be seeing you next week. Next Saturday, in fact. Goodbye."
It's from the Brigadier. He's in trouble again. And it's time to say goodbye to all of you. But I'll be seeing you again very soon. Next Saturday, in fact. Goodbye.
I mean, this is really it's a beginning of season 13, but it's in a way it's quite a sad story because it's the last hurrah for the old unit team as has been around since 1968, the invasion. It's the last time really until Maldron Undead that we see the Brig in his role as the Brig. And yeah, I know Benson's and Harry are in the Android invasion, but it's just not the same. So it doesn't feel to me like a hangover from the Pertwee era like Robot did. This feels very much its own Tom Baker era beast, but you've still got that sort of last hurrah for unit. Was it a conscious decision to get rid of you?
Well, I think Philip Hinchcliffe just was keen to do something new with the programme. And of course, Nicholas Courtney was asked back for the Android invasion and for the Seeds of Doom. But he wasn't available, unfortunately. But I think there was a general feeling among the cast with John Levine saying the same thing, that they felt that it was the end of an era somewhat. Yeah.
Yeah, because season 13 really feels like the one where, Tom went from being the new Doctor to the Doctor. I think perhaps for part of season 12, he was still in Pertwee's shadow because Pertwee had been in it for such a long time. Pertwee was well known before Doctor Who. Tom wasn't. He was well known in the acting community, but probably not to the general public. He wasn't that well known. But I think really towards the end of season 12 and especially season 13, Tom really stamped his authority in it. And season 13 was classic after classic, starting with Terror of the Zygons.
Well, I think Tom himself says, I didn't become Doctor Who to join the army, So I think he was very keen to go on and establish, the character. In fact, the cast have said, they felt on Robot, Tom was very agreeable, a good drinking companion and so on. But by Terror of the Zygons, he'd become very, very distant from the regular cast. So maybe he felt that he wanted to establish himself. And plus the viewing figures were huge. I mean, that they were getting 13.2 million, I think, for the Ark in Space, carrying on huge figures. Although looking up the figures for Terror of the Zygons, it started at 8.4 million in September, and it dropped to 6.1 million for episode 2.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, I think there was Space 1999 had been launched that week, so the program lost, I think, 2 million viewers, but it got back to 8.2 for episode 3. So yeah.
And then Terror of the Zygons. Why is it such a special story? You think why does it still these days viewed as a classic? I mean, because me thinking personally, I've watched it this afternoon again for the first time in a few years, and I mean the Zygon costumes, best part 50 years old, they still hold up. The plot again was very forward thinking. You've got again the Doctor similar to his Pertwee persona. Third Doctor persona.
Yes, I think it's
going on about talking about environmental and why you're reliant on oil, etc. So it was a very, very forward thinking sort of modern sounding, even 50 years old. That's about 50 years old, but it really holds up. It always comes very, very top 20 usually in polls with new viewers as well as classic viewers.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. It's a very action-packed story, I think, and I've got very good memories of it from 1975. I don't think it was ever repeated, actually. So my memories are very clear from episode 3, with the Zygon cubicles when they've got the body prints. I remember that very well. And episode 4, when you have this garrison making its infamous appearance on the River Thames. I think it's just a classic story. It's a combination of some of the best talents. You've got Philip Hinchcliffe, you've got Robert Holmes, Robert Banks Stewart writing it. It's very atmospheric. The Zygons are a fantastic design, iconic, really. James Aitchison went on to win Oscars in Hollywood. And his design is amazing. It's a combination of voice and the look and the direction, Douglas Camfield, and the music as well. Jeffrey Bergen providing a very spooky score. And it kind of bookends the season, really, because you've got that team opening with Terror of the Zygons and then closing with the Seeds of Doom. It's very much a similar setup with the music and the direction and the atmosphere and the threat to Earth. I think it was a classic formula, and it's a classic Tom Baker story. Tom's in brilliant form. Yes, it may be calm, but it's never empty. Giving it that threat and taking the Zygons seriously. And it's just a brilliant concept, with the body snatching, which kind of comes back again in the android invasion. To me, it's just a classic Doctor Who of that period, and plus you've got the oil subplot as well. It's about time the people of this planet realize that to be dependent on a mineral slime just doesn't make sense, which is quite. It's even topical today, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
The energizing of hydrogen. I think something we could all do with. Yeah, and the Zygons, I think, are just such a fantastic design. They're rich, but the colours and the idea, and of course they've come back since, haven't they? In Peter Capaldi's era. Yeah.
I'll tell you, watching it today as well, there's a particular scene towards the end of episode 2 where Harry has been copied by the Zygons. And there's that scene that's shot on film in the barn. It's incredibly atmospheric. I mean, it's one of the nearest thing Doctor Who's got to actual horror in a sort of Hammer Amicus sort of way, because you've got Sarah going into the barn and she can see Harry hiding there, and it's the viciousness of Ian Marter's face. I mean, fantastic acting. It's all in the acting, because he's such an affable, mild-mannered, sort of upper-class twit in a funny sort of way. But it's not him, it's the Zygon him, and Ian Marter's performance, it's wow, it takes your breath away. It's all the direction, all on his face. And then, he falls, he goes for Sarah with a pitchfork and falls, and you see the Zygon skewered on some farming equipment underneath, and you'd probably never get away with that these days. You can see, they're probably giving Mrs. Whitehouse palpitations in the 70s. But a brilliant sequence. Well, there's the greatest Scotsman of all time, Angus Lenny, in it, as well as the I've forgotten his name. Is he McRanald?
Yes. Is it Angus McRanald?
The actor's Angus Lenny. Brilliant actor. He was in The Great Escape, and he was best known for being Shuey McPhee in Crossroads forever. But I always liked him in this. That conversation he has with Sarah Jane about the they went missing on the moors, and one came back and went missing, and one never spoke again. He's brilliant.
Impressions in this episode, Ed.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the scar, and the whole thing of the Loch Ness Monster as well is very a very good subject for Doctor Who. I think they've done dinosaurs in the past with the Silurians and Carnival of Monsters and the Invasion of the Dinosaurs, but they never seem to quite get there with the animatronics and everything and the model work. I mean, I just love Tom's line when he goes, "Doctor, are you say we're dealing with some kind of sea monster?" "Yes, a monster of frightening size and power." And when you actually see it, you think, really? It's a shame that's the only element that doesn't really work in the story, unfortunately.
But I think, again, you suspend your disbelief, don't you? It's like when you go and see a play on stage, it's a backdrop, but you don't care. It's the storytelling that counts. And this is absolute masterclass in how to tell a suspenseful, exciting story.
Oh, it is. Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, it's a combination of talent. You've got the acting talent. You've got John Woodnut. I am Proton, Warlord of the Zygons. a name that humans will learn to fear. And you've got Lilius Walker, and everyone's giving it their all, really. Even Ian Marter. I think this is probably his best story, actually, during his run, and it's the Duffel Coat's best action sequences as well.
Oh, most definitely, yes. So I said before, you are the world's greatest authority on Tom Baker, probably, and the biggest Tom Baker fan that I've ever met. Right. What is it above all other actors, all other characters, that makes Tom Baker's Doctor your favourite? What precisely is it?
Well, he was the Doctor I knew when I was growing up. I think that's part of it, but objectively, he is the Doctor. He just captured the character so well, and I think so definitively. And as you know, Ed, I love the Philip Hinchcliffe era. I mean, to me, that is the definitive Doctor Who era. And I think Tom just captured that moody alien quality, and he could also be charming as well. Especially in this story, he can do that. He can be light or lighter with the Zygons. You must come out onto the balcony sometime and wave a tentacle. Or it can be, it may be calm, but it's never empty. And he can do that, and he had the training to do that, and he was the perfect choice, I think, for the Doctor. And personally, I don't think there's been an actor since who's caught the character so well. He's got that magical alien quality, from Pyramids of Mars. I'm not a human being. I walk in eternity. I'm a Time Lord, and that comes across very well. And all the things in this story, like when he's hypnotizing Sarah Jane to save her life, all of those things where he's learned to, just a little trick I picked up from a Tibetan monk, But of course, he spent time in the monastery himself, on Jersey. I think he is just the perfect choice for the Doctor, and he's got the personality, and he's got the costume. I think James Aitchison must have a special mention. I think James Aitchison has a huge part to play in the iconic look of the show. Having designed earlier the Omega costume, the Sontarans, and the Time Lords. The Fourth Doctor's outfit. Just a massive contribution to the look of the show and to the success of Tom's character. I mean, I don't think anyone knowing Tom Baker could imagine the character, without the hat and the scarf and the long coat and that's entirely down to James Aitchison.
You were saying there about Tom's character, and Terror of the Zygons again. I watched it about 3 hours ago, so it's very, very, very fresh in my mind. But you've got all aspects of Tom's Doctor's personality in one story. I mean, he's very morose and tetchy at the beginning. The Brigadiers called him back. He's petulant, childish. That, hold on, I'm not some sort of galactic yo-yo that gets called back in the Brigadier's beck and call. That amazing scene, I think it is my favourite scene in all of Terror of the Zygons, where he hypnotizes Sarah. It's incredible, because you can see, even though he's an alien, he's got a genuine care for his friend, and he doesn't know if it's going to work, but he tries the only thing he thinks could work to save their lives. And that amazing sort of guttural roar he lets out when he puts himself into the trance it's quite incredible.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and I think what also works very well are the Zygons. I mean, they come across as being totally alien. I mean, the design of them, and the cliffhanger to part one, I mean, is incredible. I mean, it just feels completely real. The face mask works so well, and the design. In fact, they were James Aitchison's idea, and Douglas Camfield came up with the idea that they were octopoidal kind of fetuses, and there's this of underwater feel, and the organicness of it all. I mean, I love Tom when he says, well, the Zygon controls, they reminded me of early pizzas. And whenever I look at American hot pizzas, I start to manipulate the control. My poor wife has to put up with all these sillinesses, and of course the children accepted them as computers, you see. So there's a whole organic feel to it, which works so well with the sound and the design and the lighting. I mean, the lighting in Terror of the Zygons is excellent for something that was made in 1975. The standard is really high. Of course, they were working to a very tight schedule.
There's that, so you say about the lighting. Funny, I picked up on this again. The scene where the chap that survived the oil rig destruction and washes up on the shore, the lighting in that it's really odd. It's sort of, you've got the sun directly behind you, so you can't really see the gentleman's face as he comes out of the sea. But I mean, obviously that's a deliberate choice of the director, but it looks very, very filmic. It doesn't look like a TV show. It's got a very big, even though it's on, we'd have watched it on screen probably that big. I'm doing this with my fingers for viewers who can't see that. But it feels big budget. It feels like there's care, there's attention, there's wanting to make this as best as they can with the facilities that they've got.
Oh, absolutely. And I think Philip Hinchcliffe, in all his stories, there's a quality. You can see he's trying to get the very best people to make the very best program. From the design to the scripting to the costumes. And in fact, I've got the figure here. The total budget for Terror of the Zygons was, brace yourselves, £76,229, which is a fairly standard budget for a 4-part story. So they had to, out of all of that, they had the actors and the set design and the costumes and the model work. So they did miracles, really. But I think you're saying, Ed, about the direction. I think you're absolutely right. I think Douglas Camfield was in essence a film director, and he frames his shots so well, and gives a lot of quality and care, especially to the military side of things. Because, funnily enough, unit stories, to me, only really work if they're directed by Douglas Camfield, because they have that special. He was himself in the armies, so he had that connection to the military. And it's like in The Invasion or The Web of Fear. To me, unit doesn't really work unless it's a kind of story done by Camfield.
I mean, yeah, saying about that, he's very, very good at giving a sense of scale and a sense of threat as well, because cliffhanger to episode 2, where the Doctor's being chased by the Scarasan over Tulloch Moor. Again, he gives it such urgency, and you don't feel like you're watching a TV program made in 1975. It's got a very modern pacing to it. The way the quick cuts and yes, okay, you've got the puppet Scarasan, we'll forget that, but Tom really, really sells it. As Tom looks terrified. I mean, when he's got the Scarasan recall unit stuck to his hand, he really sells the fear that he's being chased by this gigantic monster. And it's 50-50. It's 50-50 Tom and the direction. Absolutely cracking.
Part organic, part artifact organic. You might be right, yeah. Brigadier. And then he does. Yeah, it's all very good. I mean, it's such a brilliantly acted and atmospheric story. I think it works really well.
So Terror of the Zygons began season 13, Tom Baker's second season as the Doctor. Surprisingly, not yet out on DVD, but maybe they're saving it, one of the best to last. I always found watching season 13 that when I was younger, the Zygons, because there were so many good stories in season 13, you watch Terror of the Zygons first, and then by the time you get to the end, you've almost forgotten about it. But now, looking back at it, I mean, it used to be sort of Pyramids of Mars, and surprisingly, the Android Invasion were my favourite of season 13. But looking back at it now, Terror of the Zygons is top of the pile, I would think, for season 13 for me. What about you, Paul?
Well, as you know, Ed, the Hinchcliffe era to me is supreme, and season 13 is probably my all-time favorite season because it's got my all-time favorite stories in it: Pyramids of Mars, Terror of the Zygons, and the Seeds of Doom. But to me, it's just that definitive era, when you've got the Doctor, who is hugely popular with the public. I think Philip Hinchcliffe says that Tom Baker was like a kind of like a David Jason figure today. He was one of the top television personalities of the 70s, and it's just got that classic. To me, Doctor Who is about the alien comes down. Some people thought I was a messiah coming down to Earth, sort out their problems. That alien who sorts out alien invasions, I think, and does it with wit and ingenuity, and the sonic screwdriver, defending truth and justice and the Milky Way, I think, as someone put it. It's just got that classic Hinchcliffe feel, the Gothic elements, the Victorian house. You've got the the mummies. I think Jeremy Bentham once said that Doctor Who was doing on the small screen what the Hammer films were doing on the big screen. You had that thrill and that tea time terror. I think it's just a definitive era for the program. In fact, one thing I wanted to mention was the contribution of John Friedlander, the sculptor, who did the Zygon heads and everything. Amazing quality. And he'd done Davros and the Draconians. And John Woodnutt, of course, played the Emperor in Frontier in Space. And Broton in this one. Broton, warlord of the Zygons, a name that humans will learn to fear.
But the subtleties of acting John Woodnutt, it's, again, when you're younger, you don't notice, but the complete difference in character between the Broton Duke of Forgill and the actual, quite affable, real Duke of Forgill, you think he was a different man.
Absolutely.
These character actors around at the time, they don't get the recognition they deserve for their skill as actors, because he could have been two different men, even without the makeup on.
Oh yeah, and I think and that goes for the whole of season 13. You have the quality actors. You have in the Seeds of Doom, you've got Tony Beckley as Harrison Chase. Bernard Arshard, who always looked as if he needed a lot of sleep in the Pyramids of Mars. It's just the quality of the acting and gives a really, really powerful performance. And one thing I like, actually, one of the anecdotes is John Woodnutt in full Broton costume, because he was in the studio all day. He used to tap dance in the costume in studio, just to amuse himself. And he used to do the crossword in full Broton costume as well.
3 now.
I would. So
we'll bring you back.
It's a combination of talent.
Yes, most definitely. And as we said, I think the production team at the time was striving to make it the best they possibly could.
Oh, absolutely. And you compare Doctor Who of that era to other programs of that era. I mean, it stands up amazingly well, the way it's shot and the quality of the direction and the design. As I say, James Aitchison went on to win Oscars, 2 Oscars in Hollywood, and Roger Murray Leach, who was also a brilliant designer on the program, Richard Conway, and all these people.
Thank you very, very much indeed to Paul for joining us to give us his thoughts on Terror of the Zygons, the wonderful Tom Baker, and the Philip Hinchcliffe era. So I've been Ed.
I've been Ash.
Goodbye. It's good, isn't it? And I've been Paul.